If there is one cartoon that has stood the test of time and has become one of the most highly recognizable pieces of media ever, it would have to be 1928's Steamboat Willy. Even if you don't know the short by name, the image of Mickey Mouse whistling Steamboat Bill while driving the boat has become so iconic that in 2007 Walt Disney Animation has been using it as their logo, and I'm gonna guess that's how a lot of younger people, including myself, were first exposed to it. Directed by Walt Disney and animator Ub Iwerks, who is best known for co-creating and designing both Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and Mickey Mouse. And speaking of that, even though it might seem like it, this short did not mark the first appearance of the mouse. It was actually the third, but it was the first to get a proper theatrical release, so technically it was the first appearance in the eyes of the general public. The reason for this being that a year prior, Walt Disney had seen the 1927 film The Jazz Singer, which was the first film to incorporate synchronized audio, and him knowing that sound was going to be the future of film, he prioritized the development and release of Steamboat Willy over his other products. And even though there were animated films that incorporated sound beforehand, Steamboat Willy was not only the most ambitious, but it was also the first animated film to have a fully post-produced soundtrack. So with all that said, what is Steamboat Willy? Well, the plot is insanely simple. It's just Mickey Mouse working on a boat. There's a captain, who is of course a very early version of the character Pete. Minnie Mouse makes her second official appearance and first public appearance in this short, and it's just those three characters and a bunch of animals on a boat. There's not a lot in terms of plot. The main aspects would be the absurd rubber hose style visual comedy of a lot of cartoons of the time, and of course the very heavy emphasis on music to show off the synchronization of the soundtrack, as the entire second act is basically Mickey playing percussion instruments and abusing animals and making them into percussion instruments. Oh yeah, I should mention, there's an entire minute of scenes dedicated to Mickey abusing animals, and even though I find the scene of Mickey Mouse flailing a cat around by its tail to be absolutely hysterical, these scenes did garner a bit of controversy later on and were cut from a lot of future releases, and only in the past 2 decades were they recently re-implemented. But this entire second half and all these scenes are basically just there to showcase the sound elements of the short. Lots of percussion, lots of repetitive music, and it sort of takes on a very free-spirited tone. But I will say that these sound elements don't necessarily hold up almost 100 years later, as I don't know about you, but the sound effects kind of had a ringing effect on me, which sort of gave me a bit of a headache, but it wasn't like so bad that it took me out of the short. But I will say that the visual comedy is pretty spot on, as it just revels in that 1920s absurdity that I love out of all these cartoons. So to end this off, Steamboat Willy is still a pretty good short by today's standards, and is one of the only silent films that I would definitely say that you would have to watch before you die. Whether you're a fan of Disney, animation, or really anything, there's something in it for everyone. And even though I do have some issues with it, it's a part of history, and it is one of the most groundbreaking pieces of animation ever. If you do want to watch it for free, there are some bootleg versions on YouTube from like 10 to 15 years ago, but if you do want to watch a good quality version, I'd recommend Disney Plus. So anyways, go check it out.